Hi guys, Speed for Spectre here. So this video is one of those Spectre rambles, and you could put this on in the background because there's nothing that's gonna happen on screen. It's just gonna be me talking. So it was announced back in like March, and then also at the movie licensing expo when they announced Trolls 3. And now, instead of Hasbro doing the toys, it's going to go over to Mattel. Now, how do I feel about that? I'm honestly happy for this. We don't, as Trolls fans, and especially ones who enjoy the merchandise side of things, as they do the movies and TV shows and books and stuff, we don't live in that sweet period of 2016 up until mid-2018. If you're there since day one with this franchise, anyone can tell you that was the best time to be a Trolls fan who was interested in the merchandise. And it's not because of nostalgia. Now, part of it is, but a lot of it just isn't. And it's just simply because the toys were quality. They were good. Also, it was a very toyetic franchise, and you could interact with it in your own way, simply because they utilized the characters that they had at the time. They gave them a lot of attention. It wasn't just Poppy and Branch. It was the other Snack Pack members, and including a character, Harper, who only got one line in the film, and Maddie, who really was only on promotional stuff and books and stuff. She didn't really have too much. So you got that. And simply because of that reason, it was fun. People got to collect whatever they wanted to collect and just interact with it in their own way. But at the same time, you can never say that a character got neglected back in 2016 from mid-2018. And I think that's why a lot of people just enjoyed it. For a good example, on the back of the plushies and most of the toys, you got cute little character bios on the back, and if it didn't have a character bio on the back, it at least had a cute little blurb about the character and what was included. And it was just a good time. We were just getting good things back then. At the same time, the Trolls Popular Tree is still to this day my favorite Trolls playset. I don't own it, but it's a good quality made playset that represented Trolls back during that era. At the same time, we had good blind bag toys, and we had good plushies. And at the same time, we had pretty good, not really fashion dolls, but they were the clothes were changeable and things like that. So, we got some pretty good stuff. And then World Tour happened. And that's where everything started to crumble. The franchise was no longer a collect them all series, and that's simply because Hasbro didn't add the snack pack. They did, but they didn't get a lot. They didn't do every World Tour character. You either fell into two categories. You either got merchandise and it was maybe one or two, or you got nothing at all. Or if you're a character who got nothing, you ended up in the Tiny Dancers series, which they weren't toys at all. They were just accessories for your hair or a ring or a bracelet, and that's not really fair. At the same time, we did get cool playsets. The Sheila B balloon being my favorite one out of the two that we got, but it just wasn't the same. That level of love that was there from 2016 up until mid-2018 just was lost. I think it might have been simply because they knew their time was up, and they might as well just go ahead and just do what they can, but not a lot. And I think that's a shame. At the same time, we had the Poppy doll controversy, which was like the worst thing to happen to the brand because it damaged it. But currently speaking, I don't think that it caused too much damage, simply because when these things happen, people learn to like not to really blame the brand, but just the freaking toy manufacturer and the company behind the toys in the first place. But I will still blame DreamWorks for that. Someone at DreamWorks should have known better. Um, but yeah, like I think really part of the problem with World Tour, when you look at it from the lens that we do now, is simply, as I said, they couldn't keep up with the collect them all attitude. And every piece of merchandise that we got back in 2016 to 2018 had that attitude and mindset. At the same time, it was toyetic enough that if you wanted to collect your favorite character, you can do that. And with World Tour, you could really only do both of those things to a certain extent. And Hasbro just couldn't keep up with the collect them all attitude, but also the cast was expanding, and they just couldn't keep up. And that brings me to Mattel. And I feel like they're going to bring us back to that like really good point in Trolls, that 2016 to 2000 mid 2018 period. But I'm just mostly going to focus on at least from 2016 up until 2017, mostly because, of course, 2016 was when Trolls came out, and 2017 was just more of 2016. 2018 was Trolls The Beat Goes On, but still a lot more of Trolls merchandise from 2016 and 17, just approached a lot differently. And since Trolls is coming out in November, it still has that quarter year that Trolls 1 had. World Tour also had it, but it didn't come out in November compared to Trolls 1. So I think Mattel will bring us back to that. And at the same time, I think they'll bring back the collect them all spirit and that toyetic feeling of just being your own fan and collecting what you want in terms of characters. And at the same time, I think we'll get definitely a better fashion doll line. I still liked what Hasbro did with the World Tour version, but I think they'll give us like a better fashion doll line for Trolls, especially Trolls is a very niche franchise and it has very niche fans. And I think Mattel can just fill that gap of what we missed from 2016 in their own way, but at the same time, Mattel can do it. They, like, a huge example is the Cars franchise. Is like, you got to collect them all attitude, a toyetic attitude of collecting them all, and at the same time, a little bit of like charm to what they do. Like, again, like back in 2016, if you got a certain troll character, on the back of it, it would either have a character bio, or depending on what the merch was, it might just have like a cute little blurb, nothing too big or fancy, but it was an added inclusion they didn't need to do, but they did it. And to some extent, Cars does do this with most of the Mattel merch. But at the same time, I will say this. Cars just has just no stopping point. And that's like a huge problem for retail stores, simply because like after a good couple of years, those cars are going to be on clearance aisles, and they want to get rid of them ASAP. I don't think Trolls will ever face the problem Cars has in terms of the collect them all toyetic attitude, simply because I highly doubt Trolls will say, "Hey, can you do like background character number 5 with overalls and like an orange color scheme?" No one wants that. Like, no one wants that. And like, because like, let me give you a good example. Let's just say Mattel wanted to go back and do Trolls 1 again. All they have to do is the snack pack, Bridget and Gristle, most of the characters in Beat Goes On, which wasn't a lot, Baby Poppy if they want to go that extra mile, and Lady Glitter Sparkles, maybe Chef if they wanted to. That's a lot of characters. Like, that alone is a lot of characters. And then you move to World Tour, you got all the characters from that. Then you got Trollstopia. There's at least a character limit, you know? Like, again, I don't expect them to do random background troll in overalls and has an orange color scheme. Like, I doubt they'll ever do that. So I generally think like that collect them all attitude will return in a bigger way that World Tour just couldn't give us. And because they missed uh, they missed Trolls 1 and World Tour, Beat Goes On, and Trollstopia, that gives Mattel like a lot of characters to work with. And even though they have those characters and those designs, they can also add gimmicks. Hasbro did this in 2016 because they knew that the same old poppy dress design is going to get old pretty quickly. So they did that, and they even did it with the other characters too to some extent, but not a lot though. So I think Mattel can offer that in a pretty good way. And again, like going back to what I was saying, like they could just go back to what 2016 was doing. And since right now, currently speaking, they're only doing Trolls 3, at some point they're going to go back to World Tour, Beat Goes On, Trollstopia. I'm pretty sure they're going to go back and do all of those. And the reason why I say that is like simply because like Cars, again, but at the same time, like they have like the Disney princesses, and like for example, despite Frozen 2 being out, like I know they're gonna go back and they'll definitely do Poppy's iconic outfits from Trolls World Tour and Trolls 1. Even though it was like 2 outfits, like people still want those. Like I think that's important. Like I'll say it, like I definitely miss Poppy's 2016 outfit. Like I definitely miss that. Like I don't like I like the World Tour one, but like I would like if they offered people that the 2016 option if they wanted it. Also, grand finale Poppy. It was done enough, but I feel like they could have done it a little bit more. But yeah, no, that's really all I have to say in terms of the toy aspect. In terms of like other things, I think now would be a good time for a little bit of a divide in like a Trolls division, like they do one thing, they do another, but at the same time unified stuff. Like one of the best things about 2016 and even World Tour was, and again, that goes into the fact that Trolls is a perfect niche franchise. That the fact that it's not really for girls, but it's not really for boys either. Everyone can be involved with the franchise, and I think that's why it's resonated with so many people, simply because it's not gendered. At the same time, it is, sadly. They've ever since 2016 they more so lean to the girl side of things. I don't mind it at all. But at the same time, we're at a point where there's a lot of girl characters and there's a lot of boy characters in Trolls now. And I feel like now's the perfect opportunity, and especially since we're dealing with Mattel, I think now's a good time to start thinking about giving boys an option that wasn't really there for World Tour. I feel like 2016 had a lot better options for boys compared to what World Tour had to offer. And again, no compromise. Again, they've been doing it since 2016. They did it a little bit on World Tour, just taking a few steps back. But I think now is a good time to start doing that. Offering two options, because that's what Trolls is. Again, it's not really for boys, but it's not really for girls. It's for everyone. Everyone can feel involved. So having that offer of pretty neutral and then like more so leaning to both sides, like I think, because again how niche Trolls is in terms of what it is, like I think now's the perfect time to do it. So I haven't talked about the plushies all that much, and that's simply because sadly we still have to deal with Just Play toys. Yeah, I know. Now, I'll say this. Before Trolls ever went to Just Play, I've always enjoyed them. I've enjoyed their Marvel Spider-Man plushies from afar. The only Spider-Man one I have is Ghost Spider / Spider-Gwen. I wanted Homecoming Peter / the homemade suit. I still call it Homecoming because the homemade suit, just whenever I think of it, I think of Spider-Man Homecoming. But at the time, they were doing like waves of plushies properly, but then they stopped doing that. And I think that's just simply because Just Play is a huge budget company. Not everything is budgeted, keep in mind. They do have things that are pretty pricey. But for their plushies, like they're perfect travel size plushies, and at the same time, they don't cost a lot. But they do come with a lot of problems. Like, for example, while I do like the My Little Pony Generation 5 plushies, I wish that they had better mains. And I wish that they did a little bit more with the detail. Again, still enjoy it, but you know that there's a lot more to be desired in terms of Generation 5. And in terms of just Trolls, they just couldn't offer us a lot. Like, you know how I complained, or I don't know if I brought it up, but I kind of did, but I didn't mention the characters. Again, like with the Hasbro toys, the issues were they didn't have a lot of character offerings. They did, but it was just so limited. Again, the collect them all attitude and the toyetic nature of it all was gone. And for Just Play toys, it was bad. Like, all it was just Poppy, Branch, Tiny, and Barb. You may have, like, King Trollocs. In fact, that was, like, the only other World Tour character they ever did in terms of, like, Wave 1 was, like, King Trollocs. And then when we got to, like, Wave 2, it was, like, Pop Medley Biggie, Pop Medley Branch, Pop Medley Poppy, Grand Finale Poppy, Grand Finale Barb. And then, like, further, like, send-off for, like, World Tour, they reissued Poppy, Branch, Tiny, and Barb. I think Barb was included. I'm not super sure. And then they added one of the K-pop trolls and one of the reggaeton trolls. And, like, one of my biggest problems was, like, they were the same plushies you were getting from, like, the beginning of the plushie wave Just Play started to do. The only difference was they removed the plastic noses, which I'm glad that they did. At the same time, I kind of wish that offering was there, but the plastic noses do have a problem. They have a paint job problem. It's easy to paint the chip. The painting can come off the nose pretty easy. And at the same time, that nose is pretty breakable too. So I'm glad that they went with the stitches. But it was still not good because you're reissuing plushies people already own just with a different stitched on nose compared to the plastic one. And then dangling two characters that were never made into plushies. Like, the decisions behind Just Play and the World Tour plushies were they were bad. They were just really bad. I think I really hope Mattel can like slap them silly a bit and try to get them back to where they used to be, where they used to make proper waves of plushies. Like, because like imagine it, Mattel has the Trolls 3 plushies, but all they can do in terms of Wave 1 is nothing spoilerific. So all they have to do is like say Poppy, Branch, if they want to add Tiny Diamondback, they add Tiny. And then from there, we get 2 new characters. Again, since I don't know how many characters we're getting in Trolls 3, I'm going to put the limit at 4 new characters. So the first wave, Poppy, Branch, Tiny, 1 new character from Trolls 3. Wave 2 is the 3 new characters and let's just say every snack pack member. Then after that, the next wave, they go back to World Tour and they add the World Tour character. You see where I'm doing? Like, I'm making proper waves of plushies. Like, again, simple, easy way, everyone's happy, and it just works out for everyone at the end of the day. And at the same time, no one's getting heavily screwed over like they were in World Tour. So, yeah, I think that's all I have to say. I guess, like, I don't know if I said it, but if you like the Fashion Doll line, I think we'll definitely get a better one compared to previous ones. And yeah, that's really it. I do truly feel like we're going to go back to 2016 again with Mattel having the brand, but not only just going back to 2016 for just Trolls 3, but I generally think that Mattel will keep the brand on shelves both in store and online like a lot better than what Hasbro attempted. I also think that the advertising for these toys are just going to be way better than Trolls 1 and World Tour. And yes, I did bring up Trolls 1 because Trolls 1 did have problems with advertising. Mostly for the Hasbro toys, but that like advertising everywhere else was completely fine. But the toys had the worst marketing. And just simply, like, I think Mattel just has a better communication skill with retailers on how to properly release the toys, but at the same time, like, how to really release waves. And if they run out of stock, Mattel's like, okay, either we need to do something new for the brand, or we'll just offer you more of the stock that you don't have. I feel like they're better communicators than Hasbro is.